Tonight we are meeting with some new friends of ours. Heather, if you want to go ahead and introduce the group,
Yes.
Betsy and Richard.
Absolutely. So we have Betsy and Richard from Talent Tech South tonight. They are joining us live for a hangout. We're going to be interviewing them, kind of going over what they do. And I kind of want to just take it over to you guys and let you explain what Tech Talent South does and where you guys come from.
So, Richard, do you want to start? Can you hear?
Are you guys still there? I'm actually having a little trouble hearing everyone, unfortunately.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. It's just it was breaking up a little bit. I don't want to disrupt the flow, though. I just lost the last bit there. I wasn't sure what the next part of the conversation was.
I can pipe in and start our story for you, and then you can tell a little bit about your side.
Okay, great.
So, yeah, just a little bit about our history and what we're doing. We're actually a code immersion program that we operate across the Southeast in 4 different cities. We started in Atlanta. That's where Richard's based, and of course, I'm a North Carolina girl, so we expanded here quickly. And not only that, I'm a UNC grad, so I love the Triangle and used to live off Glenwood South. So Raleigh was an easy target for us. I feel very comfortable there and excited to expand there. But yeah, a little bit about our history. I actually started, my background is in physical product development and loved everything about it. Ran a small company where we did everything from prototyping new ideas. You know, if you had a new cup widget or whatever it was, we took you from paper napkin sketch all the way to ready to put on the shelves. And it was very exciting. That said, it's very expensive to do physical products to the tune of hundreds of thousands of dollars and years to test. And as we all know, with the skills to code, you can actually empower yourself to build out a new company in, you know, a matter of days or a weekend, and for the cost of, I don't know, like hosting a domain, you're talking maybe 40 bucks. So it's pretty exciting for me. So I actually abandoned my husband for a while and went to Chicago to learn to code, which is where I met Richard.
Yeah, and y'all, I can hear y'all a little better now, so I will piggyback on what Betsy's saying. And yeah, I live here in Atlanta, which is where we started, and we've got a great alumni network here. I think we have over like 60 folks that have come through the program here, and obviously a little newer to the Triangle, but super, super excited. Betsy has been selling me from day one on trying to get up there, and she is totally right, so no regrets. It's been awesome. And yeah, so I grew up here, and as far as my background, went to school in Virginia, went to school for business, was always interested in tech, kind of more from like the entrepreneurship angle. And obviously that's you know, a lot of what Betsy and I have incorporated into Tech Talent South is like our enthusiasm for starting small companies and empowering people with those skills and making a difference on that front. So after school, I went and worked for a tech company called Cvent in DC for about 4 years. Did a lot of stuff, sales, strategic partnerships, most stuff on the business side. But it was very much like a growing tech company. I think when I joined, it was about 70 people, and then by the time I left, I want to say it was about 1,100. They went public last summer, so I was there through a lot of that excitement, and that's kind of where I kind of caught the tech bug, I guess. And then after that, I went and did a true startup in Chicago. So I kind of figured like now was the time to try to put my money where my mouth was, or see if I could really swing it. So I buddied up with you know, a serial entrepreneur there who had started and taken a tech company public before, and more or less just said, hey, I'll do whatever you tell me to do. I just want to learn. And so we kind of did the whole song and dance, like raising money and getting a small SaaS company off the ground. And that's kind of when I stumbled into a lot of the development stuff, because once we started hiring programmers, you know, it's a small team. So I had to communicate what features we needed built out, and hey, how long is this going to take, or can we integrate with this third-party API? And I pretty quickly realized like how crucial it would be for me to round out my skill set and be able to talk the talk, read code, understand what's going on, and then having just entrepreneurial aspirations myself, I wanted to know how to prototype simple ideas that I had. So as Betsy mentioned, I went and started taking some classes there in Chicago. That's kind of where we met. And just being the only two really from the South, we got really excited about trying to bring similar opportunities back to our hometowns. And it's been a roller coaster ride since then. And yeah, the rest is kind of history.
Awesome. So you guys have actually already had one class here in the Raleigh area, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I think one of your grads, David Curtis, might be watching and tweeting. So since you guys have just recently started Tech Talent South, how many success stories would you say that you guys have to show?
Yeah, great question. I'll start off if that's all right, Betsy. I mean, one thing that is, I think, cool about our program is that people come in with very different goals. So, you know, what one person might view as success might be very different than what someone else views as success. And I mean, I genuinely think just about everyone that's come through our program is their own success story. Again, they're just kind of doing different things and going in different directions. So we have, you know, everyone from folks like David Curtis, who you mentioned, who came through the first Raleigh cohort, that, you know, David really wanted to be a developer, right? So he is awesome and really definitely one of our favorite success stories, who really buckled down and worked really hard during the 8 weeks, and now he is working with a startup and a web development company there in Raleigh, and actually out of HQ Raleigh, where we host our classes. So that's one example. And then the other end of the spectrum is we have I think at least 7 or 8 people at this point that have come out and started their own small company, which we love to see that, because there are a lot of people that want to learn to code so they can just build out their own ideas. They don't necessarily want to be a hardcore developer. And then I think you guys might be aware we run a part-time program too, which is just 2 evenings a week. And it's a little different because you know, it's obviously not quite as intensive as the full-time program, but it allows people to, you know, keep their day job, keep a paycheck coming in, and we get a lot of folks in that program that might work in technology, and they just want to better understand how to communicate with their developers. Or could be someone that's like, hey, I'm a lawyer, but I have this idea for this project on the side that I want to build out. And following our program, they have the skills to build out like a minimum viable product for that idea. So long answer to your question, but I think a lot, and they kind of come in all different, you know, shapes and sizes as far as what they're looking to do after the program.
So people are probably going to say, well, you guys are the Triangle Interactive Marketing Association. What does marketing have to do with coding? For me, I already know that answer, but I would love for you guys to discuss kind of how you see the industry and how you see where it's going and why it might apply to someone within our organization.
Sure. I mean, honestly, I can't really imagine any organization it wouldn't apply to at this point, but especially marketing. I mean, you know, here we are in a Google Hangout right now, and I think Heather on the phone, we had talked a little bit about like even Google's initiative Made with Code for Women, and, you know, just incorporating code is everywhere. And, you know, instead of just being a user, like, why not actually understand what you're using? And I certainly think that applies, especially to people that are in any kind of tech field. I mean, you know, if you're working in SEO or marketing, or, you know, we get a lot of people that have come through maybe with an advertising background or a graphics background, and, you know, they're great with the print and they're great with design, but, you know, they're missing out on a huge market, and they want to be able to, you know, build out sites for their clients, or at least manage those and understand what's going on that end too. And surely applies to anyone in marketing as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely love that. So, Richard, how would you think, from an entrepreneurial standpoint, how important not only just being interested in technology, but actually having the fundamental basics of it, how important is that to people's success?
I mean, we think very important, obviously, but I think that's more and more becoming like a universal perspective, and there's so many ways in which it's valuable to understand this skill set if you're looking to be an entrepreneur. So first of all, I mean, just being able to prototype your own ideas is incredibly empowering, and Betsy kind of alluded to this a little bit when she was talking about her days in physical product development, and the barriers to entry are lower, but they can apply on the tech side too. So we know a lot of folks, and even a lot of folks that come look at our program that are more entrepreneurial, that have had ideas in the past. And this is not a knock to web development companies, because we love them, but you might sink $15,000 plus into an idea you have before you really know if it holds any water. So what's so awesome for entrepreneurs is, if you do have an idea, being able to buckle down, the tools we use, and we work with Ruby on Rails a lot, which is an application framework. And once you're comfortable with it, you could prototype an idea, like a relatively simple version of it, just in a couple days. And then what's so great is, if, hey, this idea didn't turn out to be that great or that viable after all, you might have wasted your Saturday and Sunday, but you didn't kind of pour out your bank account to vet that idea. And then, of course, some of the other obvious applications, just being able to communicate with your developers. These days, typically, in my experience, especially any team that's trying to raise funding for an idea, they want to have at least one very technical person on that team. So as a founder or a co-founder, if you're at least dangerous on that side of the house, that's going to help you a lot in those conversations. And then again, just having credibility with your developers and being able to effectively communicate your ideas to them. So definitely a lot of ways, I think it's super valuable if you have ideas you want to pursue.
Yeah. And how do you see code working into everyday life? So I read an article the other day about how they think that they should replace cursive with code, because that's just where everything is headed. Give me a little insight on how you see that in everyday life.
Well, from a personal perspective, and from with my product development background, I talk a lot about 3D printing and how we can code out. I could code out new rings to wear every day, and that's mind-blowing, right? Like, you're not building out rock, paper, scissors on Ruby. You're building a physical product, but you're doing it with code, and I think we're going to see more and more things like that. And then, of course, as we move, with all of our mobile devices, etc., everything we use is coded, right? So from music to apps, etc.
Awesome.
Yeah, and I think just to piggyback on that, I'm sure you all are just like you were saying, Heather. There's a huge push across the country and even across the world just to get kids earlier exposure to programming, and we're huge believers in that. For anyone out there that's listening or anyone that's jumped on our website, a big part of what we do is kids camps. So we have one here in Atlanta, for example, that's coming Saturday. Betsy actually kind of pioneered a new program in Charlotte where we have free Youth Code Thursdays, where any kid can come learn coding for a couple hours for free.
That lunch is in Raleigh as well on July 2nd. Thursday.
Oh, great. Definitely. We'll have to put that up on our website.
What's the name?
July 2nd, and it's been so interesting because it's actually talk about success stories. It's been a way for our students to pay it forward. A lot of our students volunteer to teach the children, so they get to reinforce what they've already learned and work with kids, and it's completely altruistic. So it's a lot of fun. It's a great initiative.
Oh wow, I love that. Now, what were you saying, Richard? To finish your thought?
Oh yeah, I think all I was going to say is, and I think again this kind of carries over to some degree even for adults getting into this stuff. We know, like, in all likelihood, not every kid that comes to our camp is going to grow up to be a developer, right? And that's totally fine. But I do think it teaches you a very valuable, way of thinking, obviously, like critical thinking, and really what programming is about is taking big problems and breaking them down into smaller problems that are more digestible and trying to solve those one at a time to create this solution. So a lot of just that pattern of thinking and, getting comfortable, again, like Betsy was saying, even very high level with, what's kind of going on in my iPhone that I use all the time, or how does this simple application that I'm using function, I think is really valuable if you have a 12-year-old that can kind of get exposure to that from that age,
Yeah. Now, why did you guys decide Ruby on Rails as opposed to something else?
Yeah, good question. I'll take that one if that's all right, Betsy.
Go ahead.
So part of the reason is that's what we learned on.
Right.
That's one of many reasons. It's just what we're most comfortable with. So that's one reason we started. But that's definitely not the only reason. there's tons of varying opinions out there about like what's the best language to start with, and frankly, I don't think there's a right answer. The most important thing is just to start somewhere, and you're always going to pick up more languages as you go. But we do think, and we're in good company in thinking that Ruby on Rails is a really good starting point, especially for beginners. And a few reasons, I guess, without going into way too much depth, but Ruby is a relatively new object-oriented programming language. And just like everything else, programming languages evolved. So what's great about Ruby is it's relatively concise. It reads a lot like English in a lot of cases. It has very descriptive error messages, so if you're doing something wrong, it's easier to figure out what the heck you did that is breaking your little program. And then, again, it being the only thing that's important to note about that is a lot of other popular languages that are out there now, like Python, or you hear about PHP. Those are object-oriented. So a lot of students coming out of our program, is just the natural next step as they start to pick up other languages. And I think having a strong foundation in Ruby puts you in a good position to learn from there. And then Rails is what's called an application framework. And just a real quick explanation of that is you can kind of leverage a bunch of pre-written Ruby and structure that allows you to quickly build out a web application.
It's kind of like a framework, right?
I'm sorry?
It's like a framework?
Yeah, exactly. It is. It's a framework. And frameworks in general are becoming more and more popular. But what's so awesome for beginners especially is that pretty quickly, because they can kind of leverage this framework, they can build out simple web applications, like even within a couple weeks of our program. So there's quick gratification and excitement, kind of getting people over that initial hurdle and getting excited about what they're creating. And then, like I mentioned as well, you can build out pretty simple applications just in a couple days. You know, stuff that in the past, like a few years ago, might have taken, you know, a month to build out or something crazy. And then what we teach with Rails is open source as well. So that's be my kind of final point on that, is a lot of stuff is going open source. And what's so great about that is there's a huge community of Rails developers online that are constantly submitting improvements to the framework. They're posting code that other developers can leverage for free. You know, there's tons of forums out there. If you're hitting a particular error message, 1,000 other people have hit that, and they're going to help you work through it. So the community is a big aspect of it too.
Now, once someone graduates, what is the kind of relationship that you guys keep after that? Do you watch them grow? Do you help place them? Do you help them with their entrepreneurial skills? What are some of the things that you're doing as you let these guys go after 8 weeks?
Sure, we're definitely trying to grow our alumni network, and you know, we saw that in the program we were in Chicago. You know, we're still friends with a lot of those same people, and they've been an amazing network for us, and we're trying to grow a similar thing down here. You know, along with that, we openly invite our graduates to come back and audit if there's a specific topic that they're still not clear on. We try to include them. We've been bringing some back to TA some of our classes. We invite them to we do a lot of company tours and guest lectures and on special topics, and certainly invite them to participate in those. And you know, we often hook people up with various people in the community throughout the 8 weeks, and then even after. And you know, we're just a very social group in general, so that continues. As you're an alumni, you're still in the TTS family for sure.
So I noticed on your Tumblr blog, there were some pretty amazing people doing some pretty amazing things. If you just could spend 5 minutes and maybe give us a brief overview of just maybe a couple of those people specifically and what they're doing, I would love that. Sure.
I'll start with Roberto. So we have an amazing graduate, Roberto, that I know was mentioned in the blog a while ago. And he actually came to the Atlanta campus from Puerto Rico, which is exciting in itself. He had a little bit of a CS background from undergrad, but he came to us, and afterwards he went back to Puerto Rico, and he actually coded out an app for Code for America, or Code for America for Puerto Rico, where you like pinpointed the crimes were happening and alerted local residents as to what they should best do. And then on top of that, he just recruited as a Rails developer in Berlin. So from Puerto Rico to Atlanta to Puerto Rico to Germany. He's just like one story, and you know, that's 6 months after the program, which is pretty phenomenal.
That's amazing. That's amazing. It's really Richard.
Yeah, we have a lot of fun, and I think we're very lucky in that we have some really awesome characters come through our program. So it's a lot of fun for me and Betsy to kind of watch, what people get into and what direction they go. And one success story I always brag on, and so I'm sure Betsy knows what I'm going to say before I even say it. But we had a woman that came through our very first class here in Atlanta, and one reason I like to highlight her is I think naturally, when people think about like a development boot camp or, some people call this like a hacker school or something like that, they kind of naturally envision a bunch of, 22-year-old guys wearing hoodies, like your very stereotypical programmer, right? And what's cool is we get all ages, all kinds of variety. So this woman, her name's Jenny, and she was actually an OBGYN, ran her own practice for, I think it was 17 years. Finally just kind of got burnt out on medicine, decided to shut down her practice, and she started playing around with coding online. So she started doing some tutorials and kind of tinkering around, and she was like, you know what, like I like this. And she was smart to she was prepared to reinvent herself, and she wanted to find like what her next career was. And really smart lady, obviously, even to be smart enough to take that plunge. So she taught herself some online, but then discovered our program, and she was very serious about taking it to the next level. So she came in, she was obviously awesome during the 8 weeks, like really buckled down, really had a knack for it. And right after our program, she went and interned with a web development company here in Atlanta that she's with now called Toolbox 9. So really awesome. Like, she has just been great to keep in touch with, and always had a right attitude, or the best attitude, which I think is why she landed on her feet so quickly. But pretty cool to see someone that's had such an established career just totally do a 180 and kind of change what they're all about. So that's kind of one of my favorites for sure.
Wow, I love that. So what we'll probably have to do is, after the 8-week immersion program, we'll probably have to do a luncheon or something and have all of the grads come and talk about their experience.
Definitely.
Yeah, that would be great. So how did you guys choose HQ? What brought you there?
Oh, I mean, if you've been in HQ, it shouldn't even be a question. It's phenomenal, and the people are wonderful. I mean, it's been such a great experience. I mean, they've obviously been a great marketing machine for us, which I'm sure you guys can appreciate. And they've been unbelievably supportive, and it's just worked out perfectly. And of course, part of that is creating like an ecosystem, right? So we mentioned David Curtis earlier. When you're teaching your classes in an environment where you're surrounded by cool startups and meet entrepreneurs everywhere, just by the nature of like heading to the beer, which they have, of course, readily available on tap. You bump elbows with like amazing people that, who knows, they might be your employer, they might be your mentor, and that's certainly a great aspect of being in HQ, and one of the reasons we love it so much.
Yeah, definitely. So it looks like, oh, he's back. I thought we lost you guys there for a minute. Just kind of a takeaway here. It's been kind of difficult for me to look at the Twitter, so I'm sure that there's a bunch of questions. And what I'd probably like to do is take the next 30 minutes or so and have us all jump online and take this from a face-to-face kind of talk and really get out there and ask some questions, because I'm sure that there are probably many of why is it really important. I know that you guys did a high-level overview, but some deeper questions. Before we go, is there a certification that your grads get, and what is involved in that process?
Yeah, that's a really good question, and we get that all the time. And what's really interesting is what we're teaching, again, as open source technology is very, very new and constantly evolving. So what is very interesting is like there simply is no certification for Ruby on Rails. It doesn't exist. So it's different and exciting in that sense. I mean, we're very much kind of on the cutting edge of what's out there and what's being utilized, and especially Ruby on Rails is very popular in the startup community. So really what students coming out of our program and anyone that's kind of trying to get into the field of web development, the most important thing is showing things that you've built. So it's a lot more about having a portfolio, and then a lot of folks listening might be familiar with sites like GitHub, where you can share code that you've written and collaborate with other developers. So the most important thing for us, since there really is no certification process, is making sure that students coming out of our program have applications they've built that they can highlight, or ones that they've contributed. They can kind of build up their own portfolio and almost their own reputation on the web that they can cite if they're looking at jobs or talking with other people about their experience.
Nice. And just to put a little TBAM in there, is that in July we're going to actually be doing a digital makeover at NC State. So I definitely would encourage your grads, or they'll be in the class. I encourage them to come and do that to make sure that all of their online profiles are up to par.
Yeah.
In a position. So like I said, thanks so much, guys, for doing this. I'm going to let's take this conversation online on Twitter. And if anyone has any questions, we'll do a recap on our blog, and we will definitely include your guys' Twitter handle on there for people who are coming in maybe tomorrow or in the future. It's been really fabulous having this interview with you guys. I definitely appreciate the time taken out of your busy schedule. And no one can know this right now, but Betsy is pregnant, and she's up late at night, sitting there looking fabulous like nothing. So I definitely applaud you, because I was not like that when I was pregnant. Kudos to you.
To be fair, I am rocking pajama pants. You just can't tell.
That's the best part about Google Hangouts.
Absolutely, absolutely. So thanks so much, guys, and like I said, we'll see you online.
Yeah, we really appreciate it. Thank you all so much for hosting this. It's been great.
All right, thanks.
Hashtag Team of Codes. We'll talk to you guys soon.
All right, bye-bye.
Bye.